evening and welcome. We are going to call to order the special joint meeting of the Akron City Council and Akron Public Schools Board of Education for Thursday, July 19, 2018. For the Akron Public Schools, roll call please.
Bruce Alexander.
Present.
Ginger Baylor. Here. Patrick Bravo.
Here.
Morgan Lasher. Here. Lisa Mansfield. Here. Tim Miller.
Here.
Reverend Walker.
Present.
Akron City Council roll call.
Rich Swirsky. Bruce Kilby. Margo Somerville.
Aye.
Russ Steele. Karen Mosley Sample.
Here.
Bob Hope. Here. Connie Cameron. Marilyn Key. Mike Freeman. Zach Milkovich. Here. Jeff Fusco. Here. Linda Mobian.
Here.
And Veronica Sims. Okay.
All right, if we can all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, first of all, I just want to say welcome to all of you, and thank you for being here tonight for this special joint meeting. I know it's warm, and I know it's summer, and it's a Thursday afternoon, so we will try and jump in and start talking here very briefly. But I just want to take a minute to say thank you. Akron Public Schools and the City of Akron have a lifetime history of partnership between the city and the schools, and so much of what we do here at Akron Public Schools and so much of what you do at the City of Akron really is for the individuals, the families, the students here for the City of Akron. And so we want to say thank you, first of all, for the partnership. I want to thank President Margo Somerville, all of the council members, Mayor Horgan and his administration, our superintendent, treasurer, and the staff here at Akron Public Schools for all of the work that goes into planning something like this. I think this is the fourth one that we've done in 3 years, if my math is correct, but someone please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I think they're important because I think that they help to keep the lines of communication between both organizations open. They help us make sure that we're thinking and strategizing in the same direction, and that we are able to make each other aware of the programs and projects that we're each working on respectively that can benefit one another, and how we might be able to partner together. There have been several conversations that have taken place around these meetings about things that we can get involved in and help the city, and likewise things that the city can do to get involved and help us. So I find that really exciting, and some of that is not always the kind of stuff that makes front page news, but it definitely strengthens our partnership between both groups. It also gives us an opportunity to bring up questions and concerns that each of us may have, or that we may have collectively as groups, and talk about all of those in a format that is cooperative and friendly and helps us hopefully move the needle in some way. And to that end, these meetings are planned in advance, and the agendas are talked about in advance, and we can never kind of foresee the kinds of things that might happen in the community or the neighborhoods just prior to these meetings. So, I don't want anyone to think that we aren't talking or haven't been talking collectively about issues involving youth violence and just violence in general in our community, and how we work together or partner together to keep our students and our families safe. And I think that that would be a great topic to add again. And we did talk about it briefly at one of our previous joint meetings, but I think it'd be a great topic for us to add again for later this year, as our goal is to try and get another one of these on the calendar before the end of the year. So with that, again, I just want to say welcome and thank you, and I will turn it over to Council President Somerville.
Good afternoon. On behalf of Akron City Council, I too want to welcome everyone who took the time to be here with us on this afternoon. President Patrick Bravo, who has said it all, he's done a great job. We've been working on planning this meeting for some time, so I'm looking forward to having conversations and dialogue as it relates to the items that we have on our agenda. So again, just want to thank Patrick for all of his help in putting this meeting together. I want to thank the Akron School Board and also my colleagues on council who are here with us on this afternoon.
Thank you. And with that, I think if nobody has anything, I think we're going to jump right in. It's been a busy year for Akron Public Schools, and so you'll notice on the agenda that a lot of the updates that we're going to provide are sort of things that we want to share and make sure that Akron City Council is aware of. And we learned a long time ago that we only had room for 3 or 4, if, at best maybe a 5th item for the agenda for these types of meetings. So this one is very APS kind of focused because we've had so many good things going on. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent James for the Imagine Akron CLC update.
Thank you, President Bravo and Council President Somerville. For the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission project status, to date we've built 32 community learning centers. We have 1 community learning center still under construction. That's Ella Community Learning Center, and it's on track to be complete by July of 2019. We currently have the Kenmore Garfield Community Learning Center in design. I don't have an estimated cost yet, but that should be coming up within the next couple of months. And then the remaining unfunded buildings, which won't receive any state funding, are Miller South, Firestone Park, Piper, and North. And we already are doing some renovations at North. We've repaved the parking lot this summer. We've done some heating work at Miller South. And so the funds for that come out of our general funds to keep those buildings up and running. So when we're all said and done, basically 38 buildings will be remaining in the district, and 34 of those will be community learning centers. Our original scope, of course, was 58 buildings, and I'm sure as many of you are aware, due to enrollment declines and some building consolidations, we've reduced the scope of the project. In addition to our current project status, Case Community Learning Center will be open next month in August for the start of their new class. In terms of where we're looking at the Kenmore Garfield project, which is in design, we've already put the fence around the old Garfield site, and we're doing the hazardous materials removal. I expect demolition to start towards the end of the calendar year into 2019. And just looked at the construction schedule. If everything goes according to plan, we should be complete with that project by July of 2022. In addition, under facilities, I just wanted to briefly mention where we're at with the 10 North Main Street project. Again, that is not funded by any of our facilities commission dollars or the local funds or the LFI. Basically, the cooperative agreement for 10 North Main, what we're trying to do is consolidate 2 of our administrative buildings, our 70 North Broadway facility and our Steiner Avenue facility, basically the Sylvester Small and Conrad Ock facilities, into one at 10 North Main. So there was a fairly complex series of property swaps. To get the parking around 10 North Main, we swapped the Perkins Middle School property and the former Crosby School property for the parking around 10 North Main. That transaction was done with the city of Akron. We purchased the 10 North Main building from Signet for approximately $9.14 million. We got permission from the Ohio Department of Education to issue a $10 million bond to make the purchase. The city of Akron purchased that bond. We're paying the city of Akron back from revenue that we get from the TIF and JED agreement with the city of Akron. So that'll be paid back over a 10-year period. Summit County exchanged some surface parking lots that are directly across from 70 North Broadway in exchange for the parking lot that we own at 70 North Broadway. And then, of course, United Way of Summit County has purchased the Sojourner Truth Building, which is right next to us. And part of that transaction will then be the transfer of our parking lot at 70 North Broadway, which will be attached to the Sojourner Truth Building. So after we're moved out, that property will get attached to Sojourner Truth, so United Way has their parking. And they will be then combined into one parcel. So at the towards the end of the year, December into January, we should be vacating 70 North Broadway as the renovations that we need to do at 10 North Main get complete, and then United Way will have full use of the 70 North Broadway parking lot. We've had conversations with the city about the disposition of 70 North Broadway. We've already had some developers voice an interest in converting that building into potential housing or some other adaptive reuses. So we'll be working on the ultimate disposition of that property once we vacate it, and may work with the city on that. The next item on the agenda is community learning center usage, and I have Deborah Folk from our Office of Business Affairs here. There is a handout at your place with a summary of some statistics regarding CLC usage.
Good afternoon. I would like to tell you that the buildings are active and well used. Please look at the statistics I have provided. Just last year, between July 1st of 17 through June 30th of 2018, we had 22,246 total scheduled events. Now, I've given you a summary of those events that occurred each month, so you can see the disposition of the buildings over each month. But the next average city use, so that you are aware, is an average of 272 events per month district-wide. Overall usage tends to be 14% with the city, while 83.6% are APS events with actual rentals from outside community use organizations that are not related to APS, or the city at 1.7%. I have given you a 3-year update regarding the actual community outside groups, and it's pretty steady at between 393 to last year's 372. I provided you the current insurance guidelines for those outside community rentals, and I've also updated the amount of rental and parking income that the district has received as payment for those outside rentals as of May 31st. What is very interesting is please look at the very bottom of the page. These are 51 locations, whether they are building sites or fields or property uses. We actually maintain those uses. And I thought it was interesting to give you a kind of percentage of use based on the type of building. So as an example, the elementary constitutes 53% of the building space or available field space across the district, but its usage is 51% of the actual event schedule. So your elementaries are very active, and I can tell you a lot of that is not only us, but is the city rec department use of our gyms for volleyball, basketball, field events, etc. The middle school space constitutes 15.7% of the space available, but is only used at 12% of the rate. The shocking one is your high schools. We have 19.6% of the space at the high school level, but understand that that is 34% of the event schedule. They are very active, and they're active on almost a daily basis, 7 days a week from various hours, including occasional overnight use as well. I also, if you'll turn the page over, Wanted to still give you a criteria for the most used part of the buildings, ranked by in chronological order. Obviously, gyms are the first one, followed by cafeterias or cafetoriums, then auditoriums, because we have less actual auditoriums such as what you're sitting in compared to the new cafetorium dual space issues. Then it's LRC, and then classroom and conference areas. Of the requests we had, 99.5% were actually approved, with a turn-down rate last year of 0.5% for the following reasons. Someone asked to use a building location that was already scheduled. That is the number one effect of our actually being this active. The second is the location can't accommodate the number of scheduled participants because we must meet the fire codes. The location cannot accommodate the number of parking spaces needed. If you're telling me you're bringing 1,000 people and all I've got is 500 parking spaces, we can't easily accommodate people. Then we do not easily accommodate overnight accommodations, and occasionally we get asked to use showers. And the new buildings do not have necessarily showers in all of them. So those are some of the reasons why we cannot accommodate. I didn't put this on there, but please be aware we are already getting requests for our building uses all the way through June of 2019 at this point. Then this includes not only our scheduled events for our needs, as well as church and athletic events. I am now hearing that, we are attracting other community use from outside, from districts around us, because our facilities meet their needs. I had a request yesterday from a group that had been using Green High School, and they're now interested in holding their ballet ceremony at Firestone High School. So as long as we can accommodate them, we try to make sure that they can be accommodated on a schedule that is normal. If you have any questions, please direct them to Mr. James, or I would be happy to work with staff and answer. Mrs. Moby.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Falk. I don't know, either you or Mr. James, it really doesn't matter. These are inside usage of the building or inside and outside?
They are inside and outside uses.
Okay.
So as an example, you will have, and I'm going to use the Perkins property as an example right now. We have had limited use inside, but a lot of use outside because of the amount of baseball fields and things that accommodate that. Firestone itself, the field is not done, so most of that complex use at Firestone Litchfield is inside use. It depends on the actual property location and what is available.
Now, when people utilize the outside space,
Yes.
do they also have to have insurance or coverage and all those things?
Most of the outside uses are actually city rec uses or city teams that are affiliated with rec. If they're an outside group that is not affiliated with the city, yes, we do require the insurance. It is for our property or our
Protection?
thank you very much for the word.
Sure.
Because somebody certainly can fall and hurt an ankle or something, but it's part of our granting access to the property that they additionally insure us for their use. That is correct.
I know this is an issue that we struggle with, is how do we assist groups in getting the insurance? Because I don't know how much it costs, but I would imagine it can be costly.
Last year, the average cost for a use, depending, and the use varies, or the cost, I should say, varies on the type of use you are having. It can be as little as $189 to $200 for the event, depending on what. The more physical the event, the more you have, the higher its cost. So I'll give you an example. We hosted the school bus rodeo competition several years ago. We asked to be covered for that because they were bringing buses and people on the property, and that, because the buses would be there, that event cost, an event day was $489 paid by the association. So that is, we try to accommodate as much as we can, understanding that we need to protect the property and protect the individuals on the property.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Reverend Wong.
Yes, I just wanted to highlight, because there's always been conversation about the uses of buildings, and particularly the high school, if we know the top three, and Boca was the number one.
Yes.
I would have thought, passing by Firestone, there's someone seemingly there all the time. But I'm glad to see that Boca, Ellis, and North are heavily used. In fact, used more so than Firestone.
Now, when you are talking about Boca, please remember that is a 7 through 12 building. So those are uses for a middle and high school, and they are extremely good about providing us their principal permits. That's every practice, so that they've scheduled the band to be there, or, you know, every event. The other schools sometimes are only an individual high school. So sometimes you literally have to, in the case of Firestone and Litchfield, take those because they're on the same campus and combine them, which is different than Elliott and Higher. There are two separate entities. So usage depends on the, as I said, the building and the facility that is available in that particular location. But you are correct, Firestone and Litchfield has become very active. Mrs. Samples?
Thank you, Mrs. Falk. I have a question under the other, where
Yes.
it says that the Goodrich building is being utilized. What exactly what would be doing at Goodrich?
Actually, the Goodrich building, along with some of our closed buildings, are used by EPD, local Summit County Sheriff, SWAT teams for actual training for live shooting events, for emergency evacuation procedures, and training of canine units. So we allow them to come in and use those buildings to do the training that are required to service the community, because the building is available and doesn't have someone assigned to it.
Thank you. That's good to know that Goodrich is being utilized. That warms my heart. Thank you.
I think this might be a good segue to, this has made it to the agenda this time because we didn't get to spend a lot of time on it in one of our previous joint meetings. But the focus has always been on CLC use, and are they being used, and if so, how much, and by whom, and for what. And I think Deb has done a really fantastic job of providing this sort of one-pager, so please feel free to share it, and we'll make sure that you have it electronically so you can share it with your colleagues too. But there's been a lot of conversation on, well, if there are barriers, what can we do to eliminate or mitigate those barriers for people that would like to use our facilities, but may have difficulty? You know, the average person sometimes says, well, I want to rent this auditorium, but do I go to the city of Akron? Do I go to the schools? Do I need insurance? Do I not? If so, how much is it going to cost me? And so all these other questions have kind of come up. I'm going to turn it over to Tim, who's going to introduce a couple folks that have done something interesting, and as part of a group I'll let Tim tell you about that. And then we're going to follow up, it's a little out of order, but Tim will explain why. And I'm going to follow up with some resources that we found that may be able to help as well. Tim?
Thanks, Patrick. Yeah, our guests this afternoon are Nick Petrosky and Megan Getz, both with OSC Tech Lab, and I'll let them introduce all their other badges and names and everything else they do in the community. But they led a group of volunteers, I think it was last November, that actually did a hackathon, hack in the good sense of the word when it comes to automation, and worked on a website to help the community find out and find where the community centers and community learning centers are. And part of that came out of this discussion on different barriers. One of the barriers we heard about was people just don't know where to go to find what's available and how to rent those. I'm going to let them introduce themselves a little bit and move on with their presentation. After that, we're going to talk a little bit more about a Knight Foundation grant that we have to try to get over some of the hurdles that the community has about getting into our CLC. So, Nick and Megan, please.
Well, thanks for having us, everybody. It's going to be a little weird. We have the presentation back here, and so I guess 180 it. Can everybody hear me? Am I projecting? Okay. So, back up. My name is Nick Petrosky. I founded Launch League. It's a community for scalable startups and founders to kind of get to know one another and not feel so distracted or alone in that process of starting a company. And I'll get into that more a little bit later. Hack in Akron was a hackathon that we created to kind of give more agency to people, to these founders, and to kind of connect them to this city a little bit more. We're going to start with the results. We had 3 total hackathons. The last one wrapped up, like Tim said, last November. We had over 150 volunteers. This was a collaboration between a lot of different organizations, City of Akron, corporations, various startups participated, foundations, citizens. CLC, the big thing that we identified was we have this great resource. How do you get it all under one roof? How do you get it so that it's dead simple for an organization to go and book one of these resources? And then the second thing we worked on was a brand and story for each of Akron's neighborhoods. Both of these things to connect people and founders back to their city. That's the URL, don't worry about it now, but basically the results were a website that came out of this that contained both of those previous 2 items. A little background, just to give you an idea of why the heck a hackathon ever started and what it is and why it matters. About 5 years ago, I opened a co-working space in the city called OSC Tech Lab, and we noticed pretty quickly that we were losing members, and I was like, do I suck? Like, am I bad at this? Turns out, no, I was pretty decent at it. We're the #1 rated space in Ohio now. We were losing members because they were getting poached by companies on the coasts. Quick example, I had a guy who was running a business out of the tech lab. Excellent work. He's doing work for Fortune 100 companies, has a family here, has everything you think would need to keep him here. Apple gives him an offer he absolutely could not refuse. He's out making apps for the iPhone, for Apple. We can't compete with that. So it really was weak ties to the city, and it was weak ties to the greater community here that they just didn't have. So it was easy, relatively easy for them to take off to these big salaries. Later, Launch League was formed. I founded that a few years ago after the Tech Lab. And one of the big things that I needed to make sure we did was, if we're going to do all this work trying to get startups here, trying to get people to build companies, well, they got to stay. This is going to be stupid if we put all this effort into something and they just head off to the coasts. So that's where the idea where the hackathons came in, and that was a way to give people a venue and an outlet to help build their city. See it as a blank canvas and want to stay. And that's where the volunteers would create these solutions. So the first issue was community learning centers. They're available to the public, but difficult for the public to book and use. We found this problem out through various surveys with the community and through working with City of Akron, with APS, kind of all the people that needed to be in the room. So our solution was a fully automated booking platform. We didn't quite get there, but we got pretty close. So this is the website that was created. It's a homepage. It has all of the neighborhoods outlined. They're all clickable. You can dig into them. What we're going to focus now is the CLC link in the top right. When you click that, you get taken to a standard community link page. This details what they are, gives you a list of clickable CLCs. Once you jump into one of those CLCs, it shows all of the amenities, all of the kind of like when's it open, what's available, what kind of rooms are there, a little bit of the history about it, picture of the front door so you know where you're going. At the bottom of that page, we streamlined the application process and put an initial outreach form on the website. We pulled this from a paper form that is being used now. This would then be emailed right to whoever's processing those paper forms currently. Neighborhood branding, really quick, the other piece of it, because it ties into the same thing. Problems with neighborhoods where they need distinct identities, so these residents can relate to them. Our solution was branded neighborhoods with history. So each of these each of these neighborhoods that people live in has a pretty storied history. Not everybody knows that though. Goodyear Heights, when that was created, they planted fruit trees in each of the backyards so that the kids would know where their food came from. So the Goodyear Heights logo that was created was peach. So, or so that's what was created for that, and each one of those things has a story. And then you get a brand guide with the idea of the colors. So this would be used if a local organization in a neighborhood wanted to do a festival there or something. They could throw this on there, and it'd be very easily identified. Okay, that's in Highland Square, that's in Goodyear Heights, or wherever. And that's it. So the URL is live right now. It's not been marketed or anything, so nobody really knows about it. But you can go check it out. Next steps are really, what do you want to do with it? We built it. I don't want it. I have nothing to do with it. So I'd like to kind of figure out a way to get marketing in place, get communication in place, get implementation in place, and hand it off so this can be used.
We would say that it was formed based on recommendations from our communication with APS, and that Steve was our main contact, and he would say that sometimes it'd be cheaper and better for the community to put several events in one location, so you didn't have to pay for police officers and cleaning at both locations. So it could come through on a form, he could assign the venue based on the need. Same with, he wanted to be very clear that many people would book in elementary school and not realize that the chairs are tiny. So he would say, you know, are you sure that's what you want? Maybe you want to move to the high school based on people's initial thoughts. So it couldn't be a complete book system. There needed to be some communication still.
I don't know if you have time for questions or if you guys want to get going. Does anyone have a question?
This is basically easy access to book the building space.
Yeah, we wanted to get rid of any kind of barrier that a community organization would have trying to utilize this.
Because this actually has a community center as well as the community learning centers, correct?
It would also list the type of space and the size and the amenities there to kind of help with the staff, so they would be fielding questions. They could say, check it out here, then let us know.
And Mr. Miller is going to talk about the money that is needed to.
Right now we're hosting it.
Yeah, right now it's all on. I'm paying for the hosting and handling all that. That's not anything that's in you guys. So
We probably want you to go through and make sure everything's correct, make sure it's used, go through everything. We have to do some rounds of that, but for the most part, we went through and.
we would need a full implementation plan. We would need a whole cost analysis and everything. Because it has to be that. It's not a volunteer task, really. That's a profession.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. Nick, Megan, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yes. And just to continue the discussion, if you see on the agenda, we have something there about the Knight Foundation grant. And if you recall, last fall, there was a lot of publicity. Patrick and I were even on the radio one morning with Ray Corner talking about CLC use and perceived barriers of getting into the CLCs. And a lot of the discussion at that point in time revolved around insurance. But if you, one thing, you start looking at the statistics, even what Deborah gave us today, we have less than one half of 1% of rejections. If you do the math on 22,000 uses, that's about 111 people that get rejected each year over expenses, not necessarily just insurance, but there could be the janitorial costs and things of that nature as well. And maybe something else within that 1/2 of 1%. But that still being said, it's still a barrier to some people. And after that, Kyle Kudachief got in touch with us and actually offered grant money to us to use in any way we wish to use to do some pilots or, not pilots, David, what's it called, prototypes and move forward to see what we can do to break down barriers that people have with getting into the CLCs. Like Megan was saying, I had a conversation with Steve Bushko with the city, and a lot of times it's just, and Deborah said it as well today, it's just not available when you want it. And people get mad about that, and you know, it sounds like you really have to have some foresight on what you want to do now. If we're booking a year ahead now, I can see people getting mad because I want to use it next month and available to me. But I don't know how we get over that hurdle unless we utilize a website like this where it shows what's already booked and what's available tomorrow and a year from now or 2 years from now. So I think part of the discussion, if we want to go down the avenue of this website, is, where's the home for it? There's a lot about Akron Public Schools and the CLCs. In my mind, a lot more about the city because the community centers are on there as well, and the neighborhoods, and where there might be festivals and things of that nature that aren't necessarily even at the CLCs or the community centers. It might be, closing down one of the streets, those type of festivals. But something to talk about in the future, not necessarily today. But I did want to say, we had a meeting, I believe it was in December, with the city, with insurance consultants from Akron Public Schools, and had some initial discussions on this. I know at that point in time, and this is my fault, I haven't made a follow-up, but I was told at that point in time the city of Akron was actually redoing their rental agreement. I don't know if that's done in the law department yet or not, but something obviously we have to take into consideration. I don't know that we've changed ours or not, but we can find that out as well. But it seems a lot of the barriers we're seeing people having, it's not available when they want or for what they want to use it for. But so we need to decide, how best to use that money. Do we fund people who don't get insurance? Do we fund people who just can't afford the janitorial services, or is that money used to get this website up and going? So it's more user-friendly, because I don't know that it's difficult to rent the CLCs, but if that's the perception of the community, then it is an issue. And if it's easier for the community to find it, then we move forward. So I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time on that, but we are working on it. We have some funding to work on it, and we will continue to move forward on it. And I would just suggest if anybody here or in the audience has questions or wants to get involved, get in touch with me, and we'll keep the discussion open. But like I said, we sat down with Steve Bushko, John Valley, our insurance consultants. Patrick was there, Deborah was there. So once again, it's a fluid discussion, but we do have some seed money to try to get over the barriers that people find about getting into the CLCs.
Just a question, how much funds, what's the amount of funds we're talking about?
$20,000. Yeah. And it's from the Knight Foundation, but it's sitting at the Akron Community Foundation in the town right now, ready and waiting for us.
Quick question. I heard that there's like 111, I guess last year, that was turned down for various reasons. Do we have that quantified in terms of this reason, that reason, so on and so forth, or is it just one number?
That was just my quick math. 1/2 of 22,000 uses is 111.
I'm just curious, like what, if it's broken down.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's broken down on the back, the very last paragraph. And if you notice, insurance and janitorial expense doesn't even hit the top 5. So one page that says Akron Public Schools Business Affairs at the top, and then the very last items on the back of that.
Okay, thanks.
But that sounds like, though, then somewhere we probably have the full breakdown.
Is there a percentage?
We would honestly have to go back and look, because as we have been very, as Mr. King's alluding to in his update on the facilities, and I'm going to give an example. I've discussed this before. When we do take a building out of use, just think of recently Kent, Garfield, and now Perkins. Please be aware that affects the amount of facilities that you have. In that particular case, that took out availability of 3 auditoriums and 6 gyms. So if those were regularly scheduled, and I'll use Perkins as an example, for, say, City of Akron basketball and volleyball for the gyms, we have now accommodated those at some of the other CLCs that are not there. Therefore, they now are not as easily available to the community. One of the other things that does happen is people certainly would like to, hey, I'd like to come in and play basketball, or I'd like to start a basketball group for my neighborhood kids. The issue is they're playing basketball at the same time that we all are playing basketball between November 1st and March 31st. And the gyms truly are already booked. So you ask them, would you like to do this on a Sunday? No, they don't want to do it on a Sunday. They want it at the times that it's already scheduled. That is our biggest issue, is the times that are already scheduled. Because we are very, very active. We are, as we work with the Ohio School Athletic Association, and we have certainly realigned our athletics to meet their requirements. Certain sports have changed season. I'll give you an example. Obviously, fall is football. Did you now know fall is soccer? So if you're looking for field use, you've got to accommodate both of them. When you are in the winter sports, you're looking at mostly basketball for boys and girls, and you're looking for wrestling programs, which start, believe it or not, at the elementary level, and they tend to go up. And so therefore, as an example, I got a call the other day from Mr. Blake at the City Rec Department, wanting to know that I had a gym that was as big as 20,000 square feet. We don't. What that was being requested for was a gymnastics competition. The only gyms in this area that are 20,000 square feet are at the U or at Kent State, things like that. So some of the accommodations you need for these larger events, we don't even have the square footage to accommodate. So those are some of the reasons why it turned down would happen as well. It depends on truly what you're asking for. Did that help you answer the question?
Yes, it seems like it's primarily scheduling number one, and then after that, it's the accommodations, the actual physical facility itself. So
Yes.
that's good. Thank you.
As an example, we have hosted a number of district competitions. We are going to be hosting some state music competitions in the next winter season for that Firestone. When you do these state competitions, and they are great for the students and the surrounding communities, but you're bringing everybody in, you need then to plan not only for the actual site, Mr. Fusco, but you have to, where are the buses going to park? What hotels are they using? What other accommodations in the city are available? We have helped out drum competitions that are taking place at the field at Akron Youth. Can we bring in our teams from Colorado and Virginia and spend a couple days practicing on your fields because the drum competition is this weekend? So it varies by event, if that is helpful. All right?
Thank you.
Mrs. Bowler, thank you very much. Having worked with you, I know how thorough you are and accommodating. So I have no doubt that the information you're sharing is accurate, and I appreciate that. I guess what I'm trying to figure out in my own head is some of the things we hear about, and I don't know how formal these requests are. You hear about pickup basketball, or some kids want to play on the campus of a school that's available or whatever. And I really don't know if these people are going through proper channels or what's going on. And I know we know that we have a concern in our community about young people having safe places to go in the evenings to do certain things. And again, I can't say that there's a formal organization that's sponsoring them, but you hear that we need to utilize some of the facilities. And sometimes people are talking about late in the evenings or whatever the case may be. So perhaps what we probably need to do is talk to some of these organizations in the community and some of these people that we hear from as to what the needs are, and if we can somehow get these people to come together to help us figure out what is the need and how can we accommodate if the space is there. And I know when we created the CLCs, and when we campaigned for the money and so forth, we probably gave people the impression that when the schools are not in session and the schools don't need the buildings are available to the community. And what that meant to different people, probably you can do a laundry list. So I think we probably need to figure out what are people wanting and what are we hearing from folks. I know $20,000 could probably go a long way, but then again, it may not be enough money to accommodate all the things we may be hearing. But one of the things I heard recently, and I did discuss it with Mr. James, we talked about it briefly, but again, it just goes to how formalized are these requests and what do you do when people tell you that, you know, Firestone has this basketball court or this baseball, whatever is available. And these kids want to play in my backyard, why can't they go there, and that kind of thing. But we just have to figure out what is the request and how do we go about trying to get our arms around the needs and figure out is there a way to put it in a formalized request to maybe utilize some of these resources or something. And again, I don't know exactly, because you know you hear so much from different people. And again, I think it depends on what people heard when we were campaigning to open these facilities and utilize them for schools and community resources as well. So I thank you for the information. I guess it's just a matter of us trying to figure out how do we figure out where we go from here and where the need is and who is in need of it. So thank you very much.
So in the interest of maybe moving to the next topic and in the interest of time, Margot and I were just sitting here talking, and it might be worth, in order to keep this conversation moving forward, but to make sure that we stay on it, that, you know, we'll keep talking, and maybe we should look at a joint group of folks from City Council and from the school board. I don't know if it needs to be as formal as a joint committee, but maybe. But let's look at putting that together, and then have that group get together, meet between now and maybe the end of the year when we do our follow-up, our second joint meeting, and they can come back and report, tell us what they think, and tell us how they think maybe we should make a recommendation on what we should do with the night foundation thing. Is everyone okay with that?
Sounds good.
All right. Next on the agenda is the College and Career Academies of Akron update. I'll turn it over to Mr. James.
And I have Rachel Tecca here who will provide us a quick update on where we are with our college and career academies.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Just as a quick reminder, Akron Public Schools has partnered with Ford Next Generation Learning to transform our traditional high school experience for students in Akron into the college and career academy model. What that really means is we're looking at transforming three different areas. Transforming teaching and learning, transforming the secondary experience, and then transforming business and civic engagement. What we're doing really well right now in the city of Akron is the whole third strand of transforming business and civic engagement. To give you an example of that, yesterday we had an all-day annual retreat with about 65 business and community partners as well as educators that spent an entire day with our Akron team as well as the Ford Next Generation Learning team to really look at kind of where we are in this process of transformation as well as celebrate some of the successes that we've had. We were designated as the first community in the state of Ohio to be a Ford Next Generation learning community, and we're one of 40 across the country. So we're really proud of that. We are getting ready to launch the Freshman Academy across the city this fall in about 6 weeks. It's even that far away at this point in time. And our schools are getting ready to onboard our freshmen so that at the end of this school year, our freshmen, our sophomores, and our juniors will be picking an academy that's housed in their school. So if you look at the handout that's in front of you right here, this showcases the options that are across the city for our students to pick an academy that is of their interest and passion, right? One of the most important factors in this transformation is everyone in our community to understand we're not asking students in high school to pick the career of their choice for the rest of their lives. What we're asking students to do is to pick an area of interest, something that they're passionate about right now, so that their academics and their learning become relevant and engaging, and they learn transferable skills that they can take in whichever direction they choose to go upon graduation. So when you look at the list that's available in front of you, these were actually designed by our community. Last summer, we spent about 3 or 4 sessions at every single cluster high school and looked at multiple sources of data to decide the best pathways for each cluster. There was a lot of participation across the city, and we feel really strong that these meet the interests of our students, interests of our parents, as well as the workforce data that's been provided by Connexus NEO, that we have high-wage, high-demand pathways, that if students choose to go straight to work after graduation, they will have the skills and the competencies to enter the workforce. We're really excited about the opportunities that college and career academies are going to provide for our students. And we are in the first year of implementation of a 5-year strategic plan, and we're working as hard as we can and as fast as we can. Thank you.
Questions on the college and career academies update?
I just want to say, I did get to stop in yesterday just for a few minutes at the sessions that were going on all day. Darn those day jobs, I wish I could have stayed all day, because the energy when I walked in was palpable, and the excitement of the community and the business leaders around town is unbelievable. And I think Rachel, not only does she do a fantastic job, I'm sure she probably says exactly what college and career academies are in her sleep, but she does has done a fantastic job, her and Beth and the folks at United Way, of bringing in those partners. Rachel, can you tell them can you give us some of the statistics from North yesterday? Just, for example, how many business partners are just at North right now?
There are about 50 business partners that have signed on to support the educational needs of students at North right now. We actually have about 150 in waiting to sign partner agreements across the city at different high schools. We were waiting for our academy to actually be under contract, and then all of those meetings will happen. So our community has absolutely embraced this transformation, and they're ready to step on the help. We appreciate that so much.
And that's the part that I think has knocked the socks off of the Ford MGL and the folks at from Nashville and things like that. What I keep hearing over and over again is how impressed they are with our city and our community and our business partners and how everyone's coming together. Some of the statistics out of North are fantastic, and of course they're a year ahead of everyone else, so that's why I'm touting them. But I can't wait till we're sitting here even a year from now and have those things to be able to share out of the freshman academies everywhere. So if you get a chance, if you get an invite and it has something that has college and career academies on it, please try to come. If it's a project-based learning presentation, please consider coming. And if you want an invite and you don't get one, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We'll find a way.
Other comments, questions, or discussion on?
I don't want to talk too much, but this is very rich and very exciting. What I find so exciting about it, as you look at this, it is so comprehensive in terms of almost every conceivable job could be covered by what's here. How diverse are the individuals that are coming to our students? Are we finding the companies sending lots of diversity? Because I want children of color to see folks that look like me, that they can someday be that, whatever it is.
Yeah, that's a really good point. We are being very intentional in our processes of recruitment of of our business partners so that our children have the diverse opportunities to work with professionals that look like them, right? There is opportunities, through our major partnership with some of our main partners, like Akron Children's Hospital, at the Academy of Health and Human Services at North. We are looking at, they have diversity pieces to their organization that we're tapping into so that we are making sure that those partnerships are directly meeting the needs of our students.
Oh, and I know the superintendent, the assistant superintendent would agree with that, and Ellen has Dr. McWilliams-Woods has a fund saying you can't be it if you can't see it. And so she's kind of, I know in a few of our discussions about this, she's referenced that or made that comment, and it's a good question.
Mr. President, I would just like to mention, if you haven't read this report by the Fund for Our Economic Future, I want to say A Tale of Two Cities, but it's not that. It's The Two Tomorrows. I would highly recommend that you read that because I think it parts of that hit right at the heart of equity and inclusion, and that's one of the reasons why when I looked at this model and trying to implement it for all of our students, not just for some of our students. So, because it's a two-way street. It's, bringing diverse individuals from these companies into our system so kids can see. But, let's be honest, some of our companies don't have a lot of diversity in certain areas. And so it's an opportunity for those companies to build a diverse workforce by working with our students and following them all the way through, that pipeline into employment. So that report kind of outlines some of that, belief that if we don't do something, we're going to leave, another generation of people behind, and that there's a lot of economic and social risk with that. So I just recommend that you read that report. I know Connexus at their board meeting digested parts of that report the other day. It's very, it's very sobering if we don't do something, to fix some of the issues that we have in our regional economy in terms of opportunity.
What is it?
You can, it's online at the Fund for Our Economic Future. And we'll try to even get hard copies. I know Sue Lacey with Connexus NEO had passed out a few copies the other day, but we'll make sure as I send some notes to everyone, we'll get a link to that report or send you a copy of it.
Yeah, I think we're sending you the facilities update presentation anyway. So. Other questions on college and career academies? Well, next on the agenda, just to kind of keep things moving then, of course, is something very exciting and is happening sort of as we speak and this month, and that's the opening of our I Promise School in partnership with the LeBron James Family Foundation. So again, I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent James.
And I have Mary Lee Kelly, who's going to provide an update on the I Promise School and some additional background.
Good evening. Come a little closer so I don't have to use my playground voice. But it's hard to believe that it was just about a year ago that the design teams came together to decide what the I Promise School could be. And in just a few short weeks, those designs will become a reality. So in front of you, you should have highlights of what I'm going to discuss with you. And also, I wanted to make sure you had a band, the I Promise band, if you do not already have one. It's just a reminder to the students of LeBron's promise to them, and also their promise to LeBron to be the best that they can be. And we wanted to make sure you had a copy because you're in this as a partner with us as well. So we've all been making promises to each other, and again, they're about to come true in the opening of our school. So the school is based on 3 fundamental principles, which is STEM. Recently, the I Promise School received their STEM designation, and we will have a visit to the district this year to see how that is going. Also, the teachers will be trained in trauma-informed practices. We know that our students come from a diverse background, and they are introduced to various forms of trauma, and so the teachers are going to be trained in how do they support their students through the different life experiences that they encounter. So it does not cripple them, but it can empower them. Also, we are very excited about our community partners coming together to provide wraparound services to our families. So part of the curriculum is also project-based. So we have a partnership with City Sprouts, which will do a garden-based learning project with our students, which is all about how do you grow a garden, where does your food come from, good food that you can eat so that they can learn good, healthy eating habits. Students that have poor eating habits as adults have more diseases and worse health conditions. So we want to make sure that we're bringing them up in the right way. And so that will be very exciting learning. There is a sample of the schedule that a student will go through during the course of the day. What I really want to point out is what's special about Wednesdays, and that is we have a partnership with the University of Akron. They will bring students in and they will have field experiences and work with our students. Also, Chase Bank and Junior Achievement will be on the campus, and they will also provide lessons to our students. And while that is going on, our teachers will be in professional development around those 3 topics that I mentioned earlier. So the school is going to open with 2 grade levels. We're going to serve the students in 3rd grade and also 4th. And I included a breakdown of those demographics for you. Now, although we're opening the 3rd and 4th grade by the year 2023, it will go up to 8th grade and down to 1st grade. So how are the students selected? We use the same process that our STEM middle school used, where we hired an auditor, and it was a random selection of students. So we actually have students that are in the 25th percentile, which is really our lowest achieving students, and then they selected 20 students from each cluster to make up our 3rd and 4th grade for the fall. It will be a year-round schedule. It's the same amount of days as our typical school year for elementary, but it's extended throughout the entire school year. So they'll have breaks when we're not necessarily on break, but they will also have the same breaks that we encounter. So what's exciting? Well, the first day of school is coming up on July 30th. There will be a special event that evening from 3 to 5. Where we will provide tours for our families and community partners, and LeBron will be on hand. And then I just wanted to provide for you some of those wraparound supports that's going to be available at the school. There will be a full-time resource counselor from Job and Family Services to help with benefits for families, and there will be a resource coordinator on hand whose job it is to go out and to secure additional partnerships for the school. And then I just included a couple of pictures of the classroom to give you a glimpse into what the classroom will look like. Are there any questions?
So we talk about financial literacy for the banks.
It's going to, for the financial literacy piece, it would again be sort of project-based driven, and so they would talk more about what that would look like going to the marketplace. They have not, with the support of Chase Bank, yes, they will get that as part of their project-based learning experience.
questions on the I Promise School update?
Is this considered a charter school, like, what do we call it?
It's just about,
Is this part of public school, Akron
I
Public
was
Schools?
about to emphasize, Sister Mobian, this is a public school. There are many persons at the barber shops, at the beauty shops, at sororities, fraternities, and community events. The question rises, is this a charter school? No, it is Akron Public School.
It would be our 28th element.
Our 28th elementary school.
Just one question. What was the reasoning behind all year round? Was there a certain reason why we went with that with the I Promise School?
Our data indicates that our students experience what we call a summer lull, that gap in learning. So they lose that learning, and so by extending the school year throughout the year, they have less opportunity to use what they learned the prior year.
Mr. Bravo? I just also want to stress the fact that just as we used our STEM middle school to, I don't want to say test, there's a better, Incubate, thank you. To incubate and to work some bugs out. A lot of what's going to come out of I Promise is going to then go out to the district. Similar to how we've taken project-based learning from being, essentially at first it was only at STEM, and that's the only way you could get that kind of learning. How that's gone out. Just to stress that, yes, you do have to be in the lowest percentage and then go into a lottery to get into this particular school. But the goal is to take a lot of these things, this extended day, this extended year, say that because that's, would be a wonderful thing to do if we could afford it financially for our students. But taking that wraparound service and taking all those pieces, finding out what works, what makes the greatest impact, and then taking that out to those other 27 elementary schools and beyond those elementary schools. And I think that we've done a great job, all the team that's working on the school to get this ready to be that incubator. Thank you, Mr. Miller, for that word.
And we're already, Mr. President, seeing that happen on the East Cluster with collaboration with, I believe, Key Bank. We're seeing that being done, those wraparound services, even extending in that area as well.
Other questions or comments?
Do you have social workers on staff? Because when you get into trauma-informed care, it's interesting that you are providing it to teachers. I think that's a great thing. I think all of us can use that.
Yes, they will have what we currently, whatever our APS students have access to, our I Promise school will have access to. So yes, they will have access to counselors, to pastoral counselors, and to additional wraparound support.
Well, I think as you can see, just by the updates that we've given so far, at least on behalf of Akron Public Schools, I mean, we really wanted to give you, there's been a lot going on, and it's all very good, and it's all happening right now in the city of Akron. And I think we just wanted to share with you, Madam President, what we're doing on behalf of Akron Public Schools to try and support the students and families that live in Akron and that go to our schools. So I definitely appreciate the time that you gave us to provide you with these updates. If you have any questions, if something pops in your mind as you leave, please feel free to reach out and let us know. And I know we'll talk more about this maybe at the end. But I mean, even as we move forward and we try and schedule one of these before the end of the year to follow up on some of our items, if there's also things that you'd like us to include as updates for our next meeting, please reach out and let myself or Reverend Walker or any of our other board members know. We'd love to hear from you. So.
We didn't get a whole lot of requests in terms of, on our end, in terms of what's going on in the city, but we did get one request that the school board did want to have some more information concerning housing and community development efforts that are happening in the city. And so I'm actually going to turn it over to Councilman Jeff Busco, who is actually chair of the planning committee for Akron City Council, to kind of speak to some of those exciting plans of new housing that is coming into the city.
Thank you, President Somerville. There's just a number of projects that are kind of like on the books in our various stages of development. As we're very much aware, is the Perkins site. Obviously, just this past Monday, we approved development. Kinez is the developer. It's right off the diagonal there. I think there's 51 or 52 single-family proposed housing developments there. The Middlebury has 2 projects, kind of like on the books right now. Yandacy is developing a multi-use on the first, well, it's a multi-use parcel. The first floor is going to be like retail, etc. Upper floors will be multifamily. And of course the east end, their first phase, which was kind of attached to the gymnasium and the recreation center there, across the street where the main office used to house, the Goodyear property there, they're adding more units there. Their vacancy rate is extremely low, and so they're adding a second phase over there. Downtown, the good news is that, again, in various stages, there's maybe 350 or so units that are being discussed. They're in various stages. I guess what this kind of equals is about 1,000 housing units on the books that we're hoping to see come to fruition by the end of 2020. And of course, that's in large part to the partnership in terms of allowing the city to go out and working with you all in terms of the tax abatement for residential. That is making an impact. And if you think about the market and the market demand right now, in terms of single-family residential properties, demand is extremely high. That coupled with the abatement program, I think we are hoping that whenever the census is coming through, that the mayor's goal in terms of increasing our population, we're going to be meeting that. And this single-family, the multifamily, the downtown living, these are all big parts of seeing that increase in population. And it's exciting. We last President Somerville and myself and a few others on City Council, we toured some of the newer allotments up in the Cleveland area, and it's totally different than what we're used to. We're used to seeing houses kind of spread apart and big yards and so on and so forth. What's drawing people in to the cities is smaller lots, walkable communities, more and more. You've heard that for a couple of years now, and that's what's going on up in Cleveland and helping with regards to their renaissance. So we're hoping to duplicate that here in Akron. That, of course, coupled with we had a kind of an announcement this past Monday in terms of the Roman Road parcel over there and what's going on over there. So that's another kind of big hit, if you will. Hoping to see that to come to fruition as well. That's obviously a development that's we're looking forward to seeing. But other than that, if there's any questions, I'm more than happy to take them. Yes.
I know in the paper there was some concern from residents in some of these areas. Will these homes be affordable? And who will they displace? Because there are people in some of those areas now, and the new housing stock will come in. Will that displace some of these residents who have been there for a while, who may not be able to afford now the new housing?
Yeah, well, right now, in terms of all the developments, they're all on vacant land at this point. And multifamily obviously are, especially in the downtown area, are vacant spaces. And so that's, like I said, all the land that proposed at this point is vacant. So in terms of displacing and so on and so forth, we're going to have to be sensitive though, in terms of, watching down the road in terms of property values, and what that does there. But that's a great question. Thank you.
And the other is, you mentioned at the tail end, the Romac Road. What exactly are we looking at? It sort of has in the paper not mysterious, but a mystery sort of.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Absolutely does.
And what that means to us as it relates to Akron Public Schools, because those would be hopefully funds that would come back to us as far as property tax that would help to undergird. And the other, when people move in, of course, we would hope that those individuals who move in would have families, children,
absolutely,
come to Akron Public Schools, that would increase our population. So this other X unknown, what does that mean to Akron Public Schools?
And as is in business in general, timing is everything. I know that there's still more property, more discussion needs to be done before it's able to be revealed exactly what's what in terms of that development. And so at this time, we really don't know the whole story. So yes, there is a bit of a mystery there. But we do have faith that the mayor and his staff is bringing to town that 500 jobs, that huge, new tax base, and that's going to be good for all of us down the road. Part of that, though, I will mention is the TIF, which was part of that whole development. Which obviously is going to be needed out there for a new type of facility. So we appreciate the support on that as well.
I just wanted to ask you one question, Jeff. You did mention like population growth and all these developments and different housing projects that are going up and being resurrected. Do you have any information or data that speaks to where these additional people have come from? Is it, I know we have a large refugee population, but I'm sensing that it's beyond that. So do you guys have information or data that speaks to exactly where these new people are coming from?
Well, the thing of it is there is an influx. In the last couple of years, it's been kind of like nationally reported that more and more people want to live in cities versus suburbia. We've experienced a suburban boom for, 25, 30, 40 years. Now we're seeing people wanting to be closer together, to have better access in terms of, the amenities that they enjoy. I don't know if we have any specific data on that. But one thing I can tell you, in my old days, whenever I used to be a real estate appraiser, I used to do commercial property and developments and so on and so forth. And those that finance these types of projects, believe me, they got those reports. and they are not going to free up money to a developer unless there's data to back up that investment that they're making. And so that's the other side of the thing. Like I said, in terms of the real estate market right now, it's exciting to see. You're hearing marketing times for single-family residents in Akron is almost negative. It's like you put a sign out and 5 hours later, they're offering more than what the list price is. So demand is there, and I think we're in a good position in terms of offering this tax abatement reference for new construction, which is also what's drawing in. As we heard from the Kinez, the developers up in Cleveland, what they were saying was that's what the suburban folks want. They don't want to, like some of us, we like older houses and we like to renovate them and kind of breathe life back into them. Some folks out there, what they like to do is they like a brand new house, and they like it brand new, and they can kind of fix it up the way they want before they move in. And that's what I think we're trying to capture.
Okay, thank you. I could go a little bit further, but I won't. But thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
I guess this is a question for David or Deborah. The Perkins site and the diagonal site for this new construction, is that all local cluster?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I guess I hope that, you know, when these do get built, there's an opportunity for Akron Public Schools to maybe market ourselves to those new residences, as local is one cluster that's sort of underutilized as far as student population. So just, that's what we're planning to see there.
Thanks for mentioning that, Tim, because I recall our last meeting or the meeting before last, I think we talked a little bit about what can city council do to help you in terms of the marketing piece. And still, you know, that's I appreciate you bringing that up, and we'll forward that to the planning folks, and maybe we could schedule that for further discussion down the road.
I do have a meeting set up with Mr. Hardy, and that's one of the topics I'm going to bring up, because though we might have capacity in the Bookville cluster, I have no capacity on North Hill. And there's other areas of the city where, you know, because we've really been smart with reducing our excess capacity, if we get too much of an influx, we're going to have a problem of running out in certain areas. So I think we can accommodate it in Bookville. We may have to change some grade configurations, you know, depending on what the population that comes in and how many kids we expect to accommodate, but I think we can handle that. So that topic's been top of mind.
Good stuff.
Yes.
That'd be a good problem to have, Mr. James, I think. Just 2 comments. I remember when we started building some of the new CLCs, and when you go to some of those neighborhoods, you would notice how the neighbors in the neighborhood started sprucing up their houses, their lawns, painting, refurbishing different parts on the outside. So it's amazing what new housing and new resources do to the entire neighborhood. So we're hoping that that will occur. The other thing, if you look at Atlanta, Georgia, I've been there twice this year already, and if you look at Charlotte, North Carolina, you will see how people, you build it downtown, people have moved back. Even in some of the impoverished neighborhoods in Atlanta, Georgia, people are going into those communities offering humongous prices for homes to move back and build new or to renovate older homes. So there is that possibility. We're hoping that it'll take off, but it is happening throughout the country, particularly in large cities, and you can read about it online.
And that's beautiful, but I'm looking at the person who's in that home. When gentrification occurs, those people who can afford, as Mr. Fusco was saying, they may be able to get a little money to renovate, but they don't have enough to buy a new home. They may be able to find some resources to renovate, to spruce it up. But when these people come in, and they say now the house is $300,000, I can't afford $300,000, but I've been living here for 20 years. Somebody comes in and then buys me out or pushes me out or makes it so I can't live in that neighborhood. What happens to me?
Or when you stay in the neighborhood, the value of your home goes up. And I recognize that maybe the taxes will increase somewhat, but the value of your home increases though. So there are some benefits and some concerns. I realize that.
Any other questions?
Well, that kind of brings us to the end of our agenda for today. I know that there are at least 3 follow-up items, and I will get with Council President Somerville to talk about pulling some folks together from both groups to discuss maybe the night grant, maybe also the marketing in the Bookville cluster with the new housing efforts that are going on there, as well as potentially adding the conversation around youth violence to our agenda for the next meeting. We were just kind of volleying dates back and forth just as possibilities, looking at in the month of November, and we recognize that Thanksgiving is there, but possibly just maybe penciling in the 14th or the 28th, so the week before Thanksgiving or the week after. Those are both Wednesdays, and we'll kind of keep talking about those dates and float them through City Council and through the school board members to see if that works. But if it does, then it gives us a target, and certainly gives the group that'll be discussing some of these items sort of a deadline by which to get back to us with some information.
What is capital conference? We have to remember that for the school board.
Ends on Tuesday.
It ends on Tuesday.
Okay, got it. All right, thank you.
And we'll also, of course, we're always kind of restrained just a little bit by the venue, so we'll figure out what we can get as well, whether it's here or elsewhere. At least in November, the heat in this room will feel really good. So. Yeah, or 10 North Main. All right. With that, I just want to say thanks again to Council President Somerville, to all of the council members, especially those of you that were able to make it tonight, but to all of the council members, we appreciate everything that you do for the residents here in Akron and for our children and families, to Mayor Horrigan and his administration, to our board members, certainly thank you for coming out again on a warm Thursday, to our superintendent, to our treasurer, who couldn't be here but certainly worked with us getting ready for today, and to our staff that showed up tonight. Thank you for bearing the heat. Thank you for bringing all of the great information that you did. We really appreciate it. So thank you for that. Final thought?
You said it all.
All right. For the Akron Public Schools Board, we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
For Akron City Council, I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
And a second?
Second?
Second.
We stand adjourned. Thank you.